So you guys voted on the poll for what video you wanted to see, and my favourite player each Premier League club came out on top. So we're going to go from 20th all the way to 1st, and I'm going to tell you who my favourite player is at each club. Not the best player, just a player that I like, is a likeable player I rate. Starting with Burnley, I've gone with, well, not Burnley, starting with Sheffield United because they're in 20th, I've gone with James McAtee. Don't really watch Sheffield United, but he looks like one of their few good players. It's just the same, he's a City product. And then in Burnley, I've technically gone with Wout Weghorst. Why? Just because he played for Manchester United for a little bit, even though he wasn't very good. But if I was going to have to pick someone, I'd probably go with someone like Sander Berge. I think he's a decent player. But now, going on to Everton, I've gone with Jared Branthwaite. There's been a lot of talk about Branthwaite and Amadou Onana. And I have to say, I think Branthwaite is a very, very good player. Incredibly two-footed, very good in the air, got a goal versus Spurs. He's always stood out to me recently when I watched Everton play. I think he's been their best player this season. I think he's great. He's only 21, future England international. And Man United have been linked to Branthwaite and Amadou Onana. And Branthwaite's always the one that sort of caught my eye for Everton. I'd actually really like to see him called up for England and potentially in the England squad because I think he's a future England player. Moving on to Luton, I have gone with Teden Mengi just because I really liked him in the Man United Academy days. He was a really good and promising Manchester United Academy player, but he had a lot of injuries. He's had his struggles. It's been difficult for him, and he's gone to Luton. He's proven himself well. Lots of other Premier League clubs looking interested in buying Teden Mengi, and I'm so happy he's doing well. Another player I'm happy he's doing well is Ross Barkley, always been a talented player. But again, it's not always gone his way, and I had to put him in as an honourable mention because this season he's been unbelievable. Like, arguably, when we're thinking Euro squads, does Ross Barkley on form deserve a call-up? Obviously, Southgate is going to pick Henderson, he's going to pick Calvin Phillips, but you actually look at it and think, yeah, Ross Barkley's been doing well. Nottingham Forest, again, Elanga, looking like a bit of a common theme here being a Manchester United player, but I always really liked Elanga. I understood why we sold him, but I always in my head was kind of like, you know what, and Elanga offers more than Anthony. Not sure why we just got a bit of lag there while I was recording, so hopefully the video comes out fine. But I really like Elanga just because he was a player that Ralf Rangnick picked out. Ralf Rangnick's known for his really good talent ID at the RB clubs, picking out some players like Kimmich, Haaland, some really talented players, even Guardiola. He suggested Enzo Fernandez, Julian Alvarez to United, and Rangnick picked out Elanga and said that this guy could be moulded into a really good player. He wasn't quite as good as Garnacho when Garnacho's come through, or Greenwood when he came through, and I don't think Elanga maybe would have made it as a United player, but he's a very hard-working player that was definitely going to make it for a decent Premier League club. But what I like about Elanga is his work rate, his attitude, his ability to adapt to tactics. He's a very good player that every manager can use, and I think in a Forest side, it's getting the best out of him because he's not constantly against low blocks. I also put Morgan Gibbs-White in there as an honourable mention because I feel like it's unfair when I'm just picking a player that's played for Man United. As a bit of bias there, and I think Morgan Gibbs-White is a very good player. Was showed promise at Wolves, but I think he's been very good at Forest. Going into Brentford, and I think a lot of people think you probably pick Ivan Toney for Brentford because he is comfortably their best player. But you know what? Ivan Toney's a Liverpool fan. I'm not the biggest fan of Ivan Toney as a person. Why? Because he's a Liverpool fan. I think in terms of like my favourite Brentford player, I'd probably go with Aaron Hickey because he's young, he's got potential. I really like sort of his work rate and everything, and I think he's good. Would I take Ivan Toney at Manchester United? Absolutely. But I've always just sort of, I guess, is this isn't best player, his favourite player? I think Aaron Hickey's a good player. Palace, I feel like Eze and Elise are just the clear standout players when you think of Palace. Gay's decent, Mitchell's been decent. I actually do think they have a solid backline bar right back situation when they're sorting at Palace. But for me, Elise would just win it for me. I really like Elise's. I think he's very underrated. I mean, it's a shame he's been injured, but his goals and assist numbers is good. He takes 3 kicks. I love how when he scored last-minute equaliser against United, he didn't celebrate. When he scored a last-minute goal against Man City, he went mental because he's a big Manchester United fan. But I actually really like him because I really like the kind of player he is, how good he is, how technically good he is. He's intelligent. He makes good runs. He makes good dribbles. He's the kind of player that Liverpool, United, Newcastle, a lot of teams wanting a right winger will be looking and saying, look, Elise would be good. Going over to Fulham now, and as you can see, Fulham have another Manchester United player in Andreas Pereira. But actually, to be honest, I could say he's my favourite, but he's actually not, okay? I think Fulham have another very good player in Palhinha, but he's absolutely not my favourite player. This might shock you, but Anthony Robinson, I think that he's a very good player. I think that he's a very underrated player. Whenever he's played for Fulham, he's impressed me. So he is going down as my favourite. I think Palhinha is the best, and I think Pereira, just the United links. I used to love Pereira back in the days, but he never made it. Bournemouth, I just went with Solanke. I think David Brooks, he's technically on loan, is a very likeable guy, but I think Solanke, 13 goals this season is mad. He's really stepping up. And I think Solanke comes across as quite a likeable guy. And as a player, I think he's quite likeable in the sense of his all-round game is pretty good. He's got lots of attributes to him other than goal scoring. At Chelsea, I mean, I've gone with Cole Palmer because he seems to be the only consistently good player right now. I do actually think Enzo's a good player. I do think they do have some good players at Chelsea that aren't performing to their best. But Cole Palmer, I know he's from the City Academy, but he's young, he's likeable, he's an England player. Being an England fan, I always like the young England players to succeed, even if there were rivals. And he's been really, really impressive this season. It's a shame Reece James is always injured because I've always been a big fan of Reece James as well. So yeah, I'd probably go with Cole Palmer. Moving on to Wolves, got to be Pedro Neto. Main reason because I'd love United to sign him if he didn't have an injury record. Second main reason is because he's absolutely great player. Whenever he plays, he's been impressive for the last three seasons at Wolves since he's been there. I like that he's direct. He likes to drive at people, take them on. He's the kind of winger I like, someone that loves to drive at people, take someone on, be direct, make things happen, could get a goal, get an assist. Basically, the polar opposite to what Anthony is offering at United right now, and that's why I like Neto. Also versatile, hard worker, and yeah, got high ceiling. I think Cunha's really, really impressed me for Wolves this season, so I put him as an honourable mention, but Neto has to be number one. Going into Newcastle, I've gone with Sven Botman. I do like Anthony Gordon. Now, a lot of people don't like Anthony Gordon. They say he's got an annoying face, which is quite mean, and there's a lot of people that don't like Gordon out there. But I've always liked him. I guess I'm not like Everton or Liverpool, so I don't really have any feelings towards him in that sense. I think that he's a good, hard-working player, and I think he's been really good, and I think he deserves an England call-up. I think Livramento is a really, really talented player and one for the future. I was watching him in the Southampton days, but I've gone with Sven Botman because he's just quality. I think Sven Botman is one of the most underrated players in the Premier League. Newcastle have got an unbelievable centre-back in Sven Botman, and he's very good at on the ball. He's very good at reading the game. He has a lot of good attributes, so he's pulling in there. Going to Brighton, I've gone with Pascal Gross because I think he's super underrated. We hear Matoma this, Caicedo that. Gross has been at Brighton for a while now, and he's always been one of those names that's quiet, but always been good for them. Evan Ferguson's another shout, just a young player that's doing well, and I think there's a sort of theme here about young players, Man United players, but also Alice has a little thing for ex-Ajax players. I watched a lot of Ajax for the last 2 months under Ten Hag to try and analyse and get an idea of what Ten Hag wanted to do, and Edson Alvarez and Kudus were two players that impressed me. Why Ten Hag chose Anthony over Kudus, I will sit here to this day and question that. But I think Edson Alvarez, when I watched Man U West Ham, he was the best midfielder on the pitch. We beat West Ham 3-0, but Edson Alvarez was the best midfielder on the pitch that game. He was absolutely unbelievable. I think people are talking about Kudus and Bowen and Paquetá, but Edson Alvarez has been just as good for West Ham this season. He's been absolutely unbelievable. Going into Manchester United right now, it's Højlund as a United fan. Even when he wasn't scoring goals, I really liked him. He's a really likeable guy, hard-working guy. There's a video on Twitter called Højlund's Out of the Box Work, which is Højlund having the ball in our own half and literally dribbling the ball, playing his teammates in on goal. This guy could have about 10 assists. He's so unselfish. I really like Garnacho and Meno, the youth. Martinez I've always liked. I've always liked Luke Shaw and Bruno. I think they're good players as well. I mean, I like most of Manchester United, but I think Højlund is my favourite right now. It will change, I think, naturally as a United fan, but you can't dislike those sort of young players right now at United. Going into Spurs, there's 3 players that I really rate for Spurs and I really like to watch. And that is Mickey van der Ven, Maddison and Porro. Particularly Porro this season. He's one that stood out to me in the sense of how he's improved. I think Mickey van der Ven's a very good player as well. But I think Maddison edges it. I think he's a great player. I wanted him to come to United when he was at Leicester. I've always sort of been a big fan of Maddison over the years, whereas Mickey van der Ven's a much newer name to me. Same with Pedro Porro. Maddison's quality was so important for Spurs when he first came in. And I think in general, he's just a likeable guy. I think he's a good player. I think that he's an intelligent player. And there's something about me that likes intelligent players that are good in possession and have that technical ability. And Maddison has that. Going into Villa, I've always liked Jacob Ramsey and I've always liked Ollie Watkins, and I do like a few Villa players, even though they've got some dislikable players that just muck you about and foul you, like Matty Cash and Emma Martinez is just a bit of a shit house. I do really like a few of their players. I think Bailey's been really, really good this season, but I think Jacob Ramsey's a good, hard-working player. I'd obviously not been playing as much this season, but I think Ollie Watkins, again, striker. I would take him at Manchester United. I think he deserves an England call-up as well. I think he's a very good player, hard-working, was good at Brentford as well. Going into Arsenal, I don't know why the font's changed here, but Declan Rice. Declan Rice was a player I sat here in the summer saying United should go all out and sign Declan Rice. Declan Rice is someone I literally begged for Manchester United to sign. I was like, please get him. Please get him. I think he's unbelievable. I think he's showing what 100 million signings should do. And I know Arsenal feel like they've dropped off this season, but Declan Rice in every big game has been levels. Man City, Liverpool, unbelievable in those games. I think he's such a good player, Declan Rice, and I was literally on my knees hoping United would get him. I knew he was going to Arsenal, but Declan Rice and Frankie de Jong is that dream duo. If there was any duo I would have wanted him at United, it's Bruno Fernandes, Frankie de Jong, Declan Rice. That midfield was like my dream. I do really like Jurriën Timber as well. Again, Jurriën Timber and Declan Rice were two players I was like, Man United, sign him. We didn't sign him. Going into Manchester City, I don't really like any of them. Well, actually, that's a lie. I think Rodri's a really, really good player and really good on the ball and really good defensively. I think Kevin De Bruyne is a really good player and I would actually like De Bruyne. And Bernardo Silva, again, is a really good player. I like that his versatility, can play out wide, he can play in the middle. I'd probably go with Bernardo Silva, to be honest. It's just annoying because he scores against us. Every City player seems to score against us. And then going into Liverpool, I mean, my favourite Liverpool player in recent years has been, of course, Karius. But if we're looking at it from a perspective of players that I like, I really do like Szoboszlai. I did a bit of research on him when he was linked to Liverpool, and I said, I'm surprised United aren't looking at this guy in terms of that number 8. And I did a lot of research on Szoboszlai just before he went to Liverpool, and I thought, wow, this is a good player here. And then when he came into Liverpool, and the fact that he was so comfortable in possession, he was press resistant, and he was able to break lines and progress the ball and just help Liverpool's midfield go up a level. He was really impressive. I do think Curtis Jones is an underrated player, and Conor Bradley is one coming through, but I have gone with Szoboszlai. Not that I'm meant to like any Liverpool players or any City players or any Arsenal players, but Bernardo Silva, Szoboszlai, and obviously Declan Rice. They're just 3 really talented players that I would take at Manchester United that I think offer a lot in terms of intelligence, reading of the game. They can break lines, they can progress the ball. They've got all of those attributes in a top player. Let me know your favourite players down below. I know it's a bit of a random video today, but there's just not much news to talk about. I will do some match reactions coming out this weekend though, so I'll see you then. Thank you for watching. Bye.